and welcome back to another episode of the UV Effect podcast. Thank you once again for joining me for this episode. I hope that you enjoyed last week's episode and that you are strapped in and ready for our next new case study today. So we have Ariel. She's 21 and she's a student. She is currently working in food service, but she has goals to become an entertainment lawyer. She also has her side hustles going on. She's a website developer and a artist manager, and she develops concerts and events and things like that. A multi-talented, awesome young woman. And yeah, I'm really excited to get into her case study. There's this really important lesson that arose, and you'll find it or you recognize it by the end of this episode, but it's something that came not during the research process. Like, it didn't become, I didn't realize it during the research process, but more so after, as I was editing this podcast and putting it together. I recognized this wonderful insightful message that kind of came from this. And so, we're going to get through to that as we go throughout this episode. And obviously by the end, you'll see what I'm talking about. But first, I just want to make sure I say share, subscribe, and also make sure to go to my website, GabrielleJordan, inspires.com. If you are interested in being a part of the research, go under the contact tab and click UV research, and you can submit, a little form that lets me know about you and why you want to be a part of it. And yeah, so anyway, done with my plug. Let's get into this. All right, like always, we start off with step one, identify. Like I said in the intro, Ari works in food service, but it's not at all her passion. She's interested in entertainment, being an entertainment lawyer and working with artists and things like that. Actually, when I asked her the question about the percentage of enjoyment that she gets from her profession / main source of income, she says 15%, and the 15% is the paycheck. So the 15% of enjoyment is the paycheck. So that says enough there. And so I, in this moment, this first moment I'm going to share with you guys, I'm asking her about, if she had to, absolutely had to leave her current profession / main source of income, what would that new profession, ideally be, and why? This question is obviously just to gauge, what are you actually interested in? Or even what, for her is what are you actually interested in? And for, others, it's just kind of gauging what interests you, period, right? This gives me kind of an idea of the space that they feel like they operate best in, and also, what they feel like they are good at without explicitly saying that, So it's me getting a little bit of a gauge of who they are by this question. So let's get into that.
So let's say you had to leave, right, your profession. Mm-hmm. What would the new profession or source of income ideally be?
At my age right now, in a certain circumstance, I would do security, be a security officer.
Okay. You're only okay, but what about so let's not limit it to just what you can physically do right now.
I got you.
If the world, the world was open, anything could happen.
What would that be? Now I thought you meant be realistic, Aria.
Oh no.
Okay.
Okay, cutting in for 5 seconds just to say, what's realistic is solely based on your perception of reality. So if you are looking at something that's realistic as, minute or easily attainable, I think it might be time to reconceptualize your perceptions.
Honestly, I honestly enjoy throwing events and working on my community program, and just working with artists.
How come? Why do you gravitate to these things?
Because I like helping people to achieve their dreams, because I hate seeing people just limit themselves based on what they see in life right now.
And it's funny, what she just said ties right back into what I just said. But yeah, she's interested in helping people achieve their dreams. She wants to be a part of that process. She wants to broaden people's minds and expectations for themselves. And I think that's awesome. So now we're going to jump forward. In this next moment, we are talking about her side hustles / hobbies. And I had her list out all of all of her main side hustles / hobbies. The three that she listed, the main ones she listed were website design, managing artists, and throwing events, which for side hustles and hobbies, like, those are intense and I think awesome. So, at this point, I'm going through some of the things that she does within, the space, and then going through and having her rank her enjoyment and aptitude for these things, for all these little individual skills and tasks. And so right now she's answering for strategizing, business strategizing as she's working and managing with artists. And I wanted to include this moment because it's another window, of course, but this time into her one of her very strong innate gifts.
Giving business advice and strategy. Enjoyment?
5.
5. Aptitude?
I would say 4, just because I don't have so much experience yet.
Gotcha. But would you say like you're good at the communication aspect of it? Is that what it is, or?
Yeah, I feel like actually not the communication, but also more so just being able to write everything down, being able to see, like, I guess with the artist, what fits most for them. Like, I try to strategize based on their personality.
Okay.
And then right here, that window becomes, you're just outside now. We're just climbing out that window right here just so I can show you what I was talking about in terms of one of those innate gifts.
Under the giving business strategy advice, you had talked through, you only gave that one a 5 and a 4, but you talked through why you felt you had an aptitude and why you enjoyed it so much. You were talking about how you were able to kind of lay out what a person might need. Would you say that you have vision, like you are good at kind of seeing a bigger picture?
Yes, okay. Definitely. Yeah, more of a thing, how everything comes together as one at the end of
Okay. Big picture thinker. I like it.
Vision is such a special innate gift to me. I mean, let's be correct, all innate gifts are special, especially to those who do not attain them. And that includes myself, vision. That's why it's so special to me. It's something that, I do not attain naturally. It's something that I have been working to develop, to be able to see a bigger picture, to have vision, to see beyond what's just right in front of my face right now. I mean, I'm good at dreaming big, but to see that plan and that roadmap and to kind of picture more can be a struggle for me, and it's something I've really worked towards. Mostly because my mom, I believe that's also one of her innate gifts. She's incredible at that, and it's such a special thing to be able to see so big and to be able to help others see big like that too. And so that really comes into play. This innate gift really comes into play, obviously, as it works with other innate gifts when we start to realize her unique value. But really, what she really does for other people, that impact really revolves around that gift to see big and also to take those steps, which is awesome.
So I like what you said there, you're able to get what the person that you're working for wants or desires, and even who they are, right? And translate that for them for their work. I feel like that is special.
Sometimes even more so than the client themselves, for what type of vibe, because I guess one of my clients, they I was allowing them to, I guess, they're very particular of what they want. So I was working with them, they were watching me as I was making it. But it looked somewhat decent. But then after I went home, I kind of redid the whole thing, and it looked 10 times better than what they had in mind when we were working on it together. And they even said it too. So I feel like sometimes I understand their vibe a little bit more.
So in that last moment, we were talking about her, external ability, the skill with website designing, and why she's good at that, why she enjoys that. And we pulled 2 potential innate gifts, being perceptive and observant. And so at this point now, fast forwarding, we have a list of internal abilities that, that can potentially be innate gifts.
So you have intuitive, attention to detail, perceptive, observant, vision. I want to think of another word for that, but that's fine. Vision, organized, communicative, and independent.
And so with that, I'm going to share now her final list, Ariel's final list of innate gifts, at least the ones that we discovered in this process. And then we'll move on to step 2, define.
You are observant, a visionary, organized, you are communicative, and you are independent.
All right. And now let's get into step 2, define. As a recap, in this section, we're really talking about identifying or defining, my apologies, the impact that you make in people's lives. That impact, I find, boils down to 3 major, umbrella ways. And that is if it helps someone achieve something, solve a problem, or better their lives in some way. That's the impact that eventually equates to the value that you provide. And so as we kick off this section, I start by asking her the initial question, which is, how would you define value? I really enjoyed her answer. She said, something that you feel is important and that you want to respect. She also says, in terms of, the things that she values, it can serve my greater good. It serves a purpose for bettering myself. And then in that response, I wanted to just give her a little bit of insight of what she defines value, how that really weaves into what we're going to be uncovering about her value.
So in this, we're basically trying to figure out how it is that you better someone else's life, right? And I mean, everybody impacts somebody's life every single day. Like, we impact people in a lot of different ways, but we are trying to figure out, what is your consistent impact? What do you do when people that you don't even maybe you're not even conscious of, but it does leave a mark and it is consistent, and hopefully then we can start making that more intentional through unique value when it comes together. But for now, we're just going to look at that impact that you already make in people's lives.
And speaking of which, that's the question we're about to hop to.
When would you say you provide the biggest impact? So what situations, towards what people, but kind of thinking, when do I make the biggest mark on people or leave them?
I feel like when they allow me to be very open and vulnerable and honest with them. Because that's when I'll give the best, the best advice, or find the best resources for them and things like that.
Okay, so yeah, and then from there we go on. I do the same, ask that other question, when you find that you provide the least impact. And then in this next one, I'm going to be drawing those parallels between when you make the biggest impact and when you don't, when she does and when she doesn't.
Said when you make the biggest impact, you're open, vulnerable, and honest. And then you had said that when that person allows you to feel open, when you are connected to that person, you are then very open and vulnerable. But when you're making the least impact, you don't feel very connected to the individual. So connection is really important for you.
Very, very important.
Okay, so yeah, with that, we are actually going to go ahead and do that good old-fashioned fast forward. We're actually jumping all the way to getting into the final statement. I know it's kind of quick. Usually it takes us a little bit. But actually, when we did this session, it took... Usually when we do the sessions, it takes about, for most individuals, it's about an hour and a half, right? For her, it took maybe 45 minutes, maybe 50. It was pretty quick. She was really on it in this one. And you'll actually see that when we're doing her final statement, which was really funny. But yeah, I'm starting this off with asking her, how her innate gifts operate as a unit. What does it allow her to do when they are operating in combination, in that perfect unison? What does it allow her to do?
So what does each of these 5 words allow me to do overall?
Yes, exactly. I want you to give me some kind of descriptor.
Gotcha.
What you can think is so observant. What does being observant allow you to do? Even think about in your mind. What does allow your mind to do?
it started to be a little tough when it's like, oh, what does it do for yourself?
Yeah. Like, how does it allow you to function? Yeah.
How does it help me? Okay. Ariel and her feelings would be protect myself.
Observant allows you to be...
We're not in our phones right now. Let me think, bro.
Yeah.
Observant. Let's start at the bottom. Being independent helps me to know what I want and know my goals.
Okay.
And how to get there as well. Being communicative helps me to be in tune with what I'm feeling and being honest with what I'm feeling, because I tend to lie to myself a lot, especially with emotions. Organized helps me to keep myself in check and keep myself, like structured. Being vision oriented helps me to see where I like my potential, seeing my potential and not forgetting it. Being observant helps to protect me in a dark world.
Okay. So do you remember everything you just said?
Yes, I think.
Okay. I think I see a pattern, but what do you see?
That I am scared. Okay, no, I don't know. I don't see.
Okay, that was really funny, but it makes sense, as why she looks at it like this, especially with how she originally explains how her innate gifts operate. But I have her kind of rethink this a little bit.
I don't really see a pattern, right? I see a pattern, but then I don't. It makes me seem like I'm just kind of like, no, for like a little like guarded. It makes people say that about me already, so.
Observant, visionary, organized, communicative, independent. I can see why you say that, but I think let's change it to a different word. You actually said one word, I think it was under unorganized. You said the word structured. I loved that. So let's think about this, right? Being observant, you said it allows you to be a bit guarded towards other people, but allows you to kind of be conscious of other people, right? You're able to kind of see, who they are, or at least how they're presenting themselves, right? Being a visionary allows you to kind of see a bigger picture, right? Being organized allows you to kind of have a certain amount of structure within that, maybe within the way that you are maybe working with other people, maybe the work that you're just doing, period. And in your own head, don't make sure you cut me off if I'm saying something wrong, but in your own head, maybe even giving yourself, like you said, a bit of structure, right? You're giving yourself like maybe some clarity, like a path or something like that. And then being communicative for yourself, like as it functions for you. Would you say that's also very similar? That it allows you kind of talk to yourself, or what?
It allows me to talk to myself, but for, I guess, different purposes. For say, when I was thinking communicative, that's what I started to learn lately. Is like being aware of like my thoughts, or being very reflective of my actions, and that allows me to, like, whether it's journaling or in my head, like literally just being in my head.
Okay, and then independence. Keep going with that. Like, what does it allow your mind to do?
Allows me to. Actually, for independence, I don't remember what I said at first, but what I want to say for that is it helps me to be, stay on my path for goals. Because, like, if I'm independent, it's like, be like, oh, if I'm struggling, like, with money, it's not like, oh, yeah, I might need to depend on my family, and my family doesn't have it, so that might mean I have to give up for a little bit. Being independent helps me to remember, like, oh, you can just hustle even harder, put in some more hours at work, get the money back so you can be able to afford whatever you need to afford. Or if it's like certain goals, it's like go to a certain law school. Me being independent knows that I need to put in the work for it, instead of, I guess, like, basically it takes away limits for me. Being independent takes away limits.
Interesting. Okay.
So I'm really glad that we took that moment to go back and rework and talk out how she perceives how her innate gifts work, and kind of see them more in a positive light rather in that negative light, which was like that guarded, fearful presence. It did not make that wrong necessarily, and we'll get into that. But we are trying to find that positive impact, right? How we can use those gifts for a positive impact in people's lives. But we're just as capable as the negative one as well. Again, we're going to get into it.
I feel like these words definitely keep me focused and structured. Because I feel like because the only reason why I was saying, like, I was just going to say structured, but I feel like observant kind of like is like the weird one out kind of, and that's why I was saying focus, because I feel like if I'm observant, like we talked about like how others present themselves, how I present myself, and everything like that, then it keeps me focused on what I need to, I guess, do, and everything else keeps me structured.
So yeah, there you go. There's her innate gifts. And then also for her impact, she wrote building up people's potential, which I thought was nice. And so from here, like normal, we go into the final statements. I write a version of her iteration, then she writes one. And something that never happened before happened here. When she came back with her iteration, it actually was so concise and hit the nail right on the head that it ended up being the final iteration. And it made so much sense for what her final statement actually was, which was this. My unique value is establishing structure in order to build upon an individual's potential.
Usually by this point, the person would come back and would have written like a longer kind of statement that, needs to be condensed. This statement is really nice and like to the point, which makes sense for your innate gifts. It makes a lot of sense. You're focused and structured. So it makes sense why you came back with such a like poignant iteration. And I feel like it really does connect because just what you've said so far throughout this, like it sounds so accurate as to like even like how you were describing your own like process and stuff. The way that you were describing what you do for other people, but also just kind of the way that you were thinking throughout the process. It just feels like you were like, what was it? There was part when you were talking about the independence and you were saying how like, if you have to deal with something with a family or you don't have, the money that you need, you would just kind of keep yourself in check. You can do a game plan. You can do this, you can do that. Like you could kind of figure out what you were going to do next, but you kind of almost had a vision for it, huh? Yeah. So I'm kind of I'm putting it together. I can really see that's a really good. That's really good. I like it.
So not every individual is, in this process, particularly in this research process, is going to be able to figure out their statement as quickly and as well as she did. And they haven't. But for me, it was just such a good little like goalpost or like a signpost in my research to see that someone could. That's kind of the point. Like I'm not going to be going through this process with every single individual that I want this to reach. I want to reach so many people. I want people to be able to do this on their own. I want people to be able to identify, define, and embrace their unique values for themselves. That's what this whole research is for. And so to see that somebody, even though she is a very structured and organized individual, and it helped greatly for her to be able to do this, it was a good sign that it is possible for somebody to be able to uncover that for themselves, if I do this right. So I don't know. That was really just encouraging for me. So now we're going to go ahead and hop into step 3, embrace, finish this off. Like the last 3 episodes, we are going to focus on one of the 3 Ps. So if you haven't watched any other or listened to any other episodes of the UV Effect podcast, the embrace step is broken down to 3 parts. We're learning, the individual is learning how to use their unique value to affect their personal lives, professional lives, and the lives of other people. in the last two episodes, in the first of the last two episodes, the one with Myron, we focused on the people section. On the last episode with Daniel, we focused on the personal section. And on this episode, we are going to focus on the professional section. Grab the insight from that so that you guys can kind of see what that's all about. And the overarching question in this section is, how can your unique value affect your work?
So to get started, I want to ask, that you can think of, in what ways have you unintentionally been utilizing your unique value?
Unintentionally?
Yeah, so in the past.
I think, like, whenever somebody, like, I guess, gives me an idea, like, or if they want to do something, I always, like, expand it, like, always adding extra. Like, that's, or, like, people tell me, like, an idea or one of their dreams or goals, like, I'm always trying to, like, I guess, give, suggestions or things like that can help it grow. So, help give it life. Basically, like, giving things life no matter what event it is or what idea it is.
I really love that, what you said, like giving things life. I feel like that really just ties back into that, like that vision. And I mean, again, obviously all of her innate gifts, being, vision, observant, being organized, communicative, and a little bit of an independent for that one, but really that ability to kind of see, what something is and then see what it could be, and then also being able to produce that, right, in order to make it reality. I think that's really special, and I think that really comes out there. So you really get to see how those gifts work in that. And then so now, as we get into that profession aspect, we can kind of see, what she does best, where her unique value really comes out most in her work, especially in the work that she ideally wants to pursue.
Do you find, is there any one aspect of what you do that you are using your unique value more, like the most?
Yeah, like the one where it's like managing artists and throwing events.
Gotcha.
Anything that is more in the creative realm for me, I feel, even though like I'm not a creative person myself, I bring like the structure to creative elements.
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah, I really like that. Like bringing structure to creative elements, like it's just that's beautiful. And that's one reason why I really wanted to include this answer and talk and have include this part of the profession section for her, and like go through that with her case study specifically, because the way that she thinks, she's clearly very focused and structured, right? That's what her innate gifts allow her to do, and that's really how she came at this specifically in this section. She is clear on what she wants to do, even though she has vision and she thinks big as well. It's never convoluted, right? It seems clear. It seems focused. And I think that's super important in terms of utilizing your unique value in order to affect the work that you do. That is what your unique value allows you to do. It allows you to give yourself a bit of healthy tunnel vision, right? It allows you to now to take what it is that you do and run it through your unique value, right? And see what should stay, what should be delegated, and what needs to go, right? Because like I had said, I believe it was maybe the last episode or an episode before that, but if your unique value is not being used a lot, it should be being used more, especially through your work, because that's where you get to impact people. That's where you get to impact your own lifestyle. And so, it's you, right? It's you, it's your design. So it really should be operating more than anything else, any kind of fabricated or developed skills, it should be operating the most in order to be focused on what it is that you want to do in your profession, and to not just have the dream for it, but to look at the details, right? To be so specific about what it is that you do best.
I feel like I can build up people's potential or build on people's potential, however you word that.
Well, it's actually that would be a big distinction: building on people's potential or building up people's potential. I think there's a distinction there.
Yeah, I think building on to create some type of attachment, and I don't really want attachment.
Okay.
First, building up people's potential.
Okay.
So this moment here is actually a moment from step 2, define, that I'm bringing back here as a bit of a callback. Because what she just said in terms of that like attachment, that she doesn't want to be a part of her impact, is very important. And then what she goes on to explain says a lot, and I want to share that.
Do you mind just giving me like just your thought process as to why you said that?
Because I was thinking the reason why like that helped me to differentiate is honestly it goes with the artist management thing, because the reason why I don't want to be like an artist manager as a career, even though like a lot of people say, oh, you could do well at it, is because I feel like I don't like having the attachment to that, because I feel like I'm attaching myself to somebody who might seem a little serious about their dream, but not so serious, whereas like I'm willing to do anything, but they might not be willing to do anything for their career. And I don't like that attachment, because it's like basically I feel like if someone's not able to put like 110% in their goals, which is I feel like a lot of people, honestly, because they don't want to put in all the work, then me attaching myself to that can lead to disappointment. So that's why I'm like, I'd rather not have attachment and work where I can. That's why I feel like as a lawyer, that's kind of like one of the more distant professions in the music industry when working with artists.
And so in this, I absolutely understand where she's coming from. She does not want to be involved or working with people that, you know, they come off like, oh, yeah, they're pumped and they're passionate about it, but they're not willing to put in the work. I mean, that's completely respectable and understandable. The thing I want to note and pull out here is, and it's kind of the thing that I had realized as I was editing. This was the message that I was realizing as I was editing this. How important it is to recognize that what you want isn't always going to line up with how you are needed. We can often get in the way of our impact with our wants and comforts. And okay, with Ariel here, there's obviously nothing wrong necessarily about not wanting to be disappointed, you know, by putting your time and energy into someone that can disappoint you with their lack of effort and dedication, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But the thing that kind of triggered me, or like not triggered me, but like was when she talked about that, like not wanting that attachment. That was so interesting because connectivity, impact, especially with her statement, it requires that attachment. If I reread her statement to you, it says, my unique value is establishing structure, right? That's just what she does, in order to build upon an individual's potential. That's her impact, in order to build upon an individual's potential. That requires a connection. And she said that herself, that connectivity was important. That requires an attachment. And so we're going to get into this a little bit more as we finish off here. But I'll make one note that in this particular, what she just said was that she didn't like the word build on because it required that attachment. But in her final statement, it includes the words build upon, which is basically the same thing. So coming back to step 3, embrace, this section of professional, in this final question in this section, I'm asking her this question: how can you utilize your unique value more throughout your profession? This is even in areas in which you don't particularly enjoy. And her answer directly reflects how this not wanting attachment can and does interfere with the ability to make that really that full impact in the lives of her clients and the people that she works with.
How can you utilize your UV more throughout your life, your profession, specifically even in thinking about maybe even the aspects that you don't like or aren't particularly good at? How can you really start to allow your UV to shine, right, in your work?
Probably I think the stubbornness is really like holds me back with it. So I think I need to be like, I guess, less stubborn if I feel like, let's say whoever I'm working with isn't putting in as much work as I feel like they should. Just because they aren't, they might need some encouragement. And I feel like people kind of learn by action. So it's like I need to step up to the plate even more until they probably get that encouragement or motivation back. And then we can continue to soar. Because I feel like that's how things drop for me, or that's how I drop things.
In order for her unique value to be impactful, she has to put aside that fear or that, that distrust of potential disappointment because of that individual's lack of motivation, and be the one that provides that example that can represent and show what needs to be done and how it can be done, to step up. And that, because she had just said, when she doesn't do it, that's when things drop. She realized that it's kind of her job, that's her position, and it's what her unique value is uniquely geared to do, specifically that impact, in order to build upon an individual's potential, right? So a person that she's working with, might be at one level and hasn't quite recognized the full extent of what they can do. It's really her job, her design, to be able to help them to see what needs to be done, what can be done, and to kind of be that example. And like her innate gifts allow her to do, it allows her to establish the structure. She's the one that established the structure in order to push them to see more and to build upon that potential.
So if I step up to the plate by being more encouraging to my, I guess, client or artist through actions, then they may like regain that motivation and inspiration. So I feel like, yeah, I'm like, even in my daily life, like I like to try to have things organized or having like calendars and things structured, but it's like I need discipline so I can have like time to put aside for that. Or like I'm working with artists or events and stuff, like stepping up to the plate and like doing, I guess, my structuring for them even more. I have to be disciplined because if they fall off and then if I fall off too, there's no more potential that's going to be worked on because like we both given up on a dream.
What was said there is just so important, and it's really all about what she said, that stepping up to the plate, right? Like that's what is required for intentional impact, right? I've said before, we make impacts in people's lives consistently and often, positive and negative. But what is the impact that you are making on purpose? That is the one that people are going to need, and it requires you to step up and out of your comfort zone and out of your fears in order to do that. It's crazy to me that I hadn't recognized how important this was during the research, but that's why I'm just so glad to have this podcast, and I think it's so great to be able to put this together in a way that we get to see, through lines and important messages that we hadn't even noticed during the research itself. And so to finish off, I'm gonna share you this final moment and take this full circle.
I feel like with me, it's like I'm so scared of being so bossy, and I see that as a negative thing when it could be a positive thing, because it's like a lot of reasons why people don't get stuff done is because they don't really have that assertiveness with themselves or see like that urgentness for themselves to actually do stuff. So just because like I might see it, I don't have to be afraid of coming off as bossy.
Yeah.
Ariel, she's a multi-talented individual. I mean, I haven't known her for long, but I recognize that, when she allows herself to just do what she knows she can do, she gets stuff done. Like, she makes things work. And I think that's such an important kind of person to have in your life. And for a person like that to recognize that about themselves, amazing, and super important. So, but the way that she was raised, and there were little hints here and there throughout the episode. I didn't want to spill too much about her personal life, but it wasn't like fiscally stable as she was growing up, and so in that type of in that environment, it really only bred her innate design. It pushed her to be more structured and to be more focused, and that was so important. But it can be difficult to see the importance of your value when you feel taken advantage of sometimes rather than valued. She said that she feared, maybe being called bossy, or, for a person to disappoint her with, they say they're all in, but then they disappoint her with with their work ethic and things like that. But they expect, her to go all in and to do the things that they won't do for themselves, right? And when you are taken advantage of rather than just valued like that, it can be so easy to wall ourselves off, to be guarded, like she said, and to try to detach. But, I'm really glad that I did this with Ariel because, if not just for her, then for anyone here listening that it's in a similar situation, who finds that they are dealing with the same kind of struggle in terms of the people in their lives. I just think it's important to realize and remember that what makes you uniquely valuable is inherent. It will always be, right? Just like you will always be who you are. No matter how much you try to change yourself, grow or not grow, you will always be. In your lifetime, you can strengthen your impact or you'll never fully realize it. But that impact will always be so. Just like a screwdriver, right? A screwdriver will always be a screwdriver. Whether you saw off the head of it, the part that screws in the nail, or, you leave it, it will still always be a screwdriver. It's just a bit more useless. But that in of itself is the point that I'm trying to make here. You have a choice, right? It's your choice to either let the effects of the world make you miss your mark, miss your purpose, miss your importance, or to see beyond that, to see beyond the wants, right, and the comforts disguised as fear and pride in order to make that special mark right where it is needed, in order to step up to the plate and to make that mark, even when it's hard. And with that, we will finish off this episode with this case study with Ariel. I thank you guys so much for listening and tuning into another episode of the UV Effect podcast. I hope that you enjoyed this case study and that you were kind of actually as informed as I was, because by the end of it, I was really informed by what I got from this case study. I mean, it was really good, and everything I just said was just what I had learned after listening to it, and I thought that was just so special. But yeah, thank you so much for listening, and if you felt you got something good from this episode, be sure to share the podcast with friends and family. Be sure to like and subscribe so that you won't miss the next episode. And if you want to be a part of the UV Effect Research Project and have a chance to identify, define, and embrace your unique value and possibly be a part of, share your case study on the podcast, be sure to go to GabrielleJordaninspires.com/research to submit an application. But yeah, I hope you'll join me next week for another episode. See you then.